Richie Mars, is it Raw or is it SmackDown? What is this concept of this little show we got going on here?
So pretty much the concept is we'll take a bunch of stars, past and present and future, of Raw and SmackDown. We get to determine what show is their quintessential show. If they were to retire tomorrow, what is the jersey we'll hang up on the rafters? Is it a Raw jersey or a SmackDown jersey? And that's what we're doing here today.
And Richie, you have a guest of today. MJ, are you more of a Raw guy or a SmackDown guy?
SmackDown. Especially as a kid, I was a big fan of the SmackDown 6 and just everything that happened on the SmackDown roster in the early 2000s. And I just kind of always stuck with SmackDown.
Richie, we tend to have more SmackDowners than Rawers, so we're going to have to kind of shake that up a little bit. I'm going to have to start kind of like purging the herd before they come in here in approval. So we need more Raw people on here.
Listen, we're hearing we're getting that like brand warfare going on. I'm gonna have a solid War Games team if that's what we're gonna do.
What we're gonna do now is spin the wheel and see where we land in which wrestler. All right, MJ, here you go. Who is going to be the second wrestler here for Raw or SmackDown?
No hammies.
Let's go.
Ooh.
RKO himself, Randy Orton. All right, MJ, gut reaction. Is Randy Orton a Raw or a SmackDown guy before we look at the stats?
Ooh, Randy Orton, I'm going to say he's a Raw guy. I think there's something with that, the Evolution run, the Evolution turning on him, and, 09 Orton on Raw, where he was a psychopath. There's just something about Randy on Raw, even though I do love some of his great SmackDown moments.
He does have great SmackDown moments. I'm not sure where I'm going to lean, even though my gut tells me Raw. Richie?
It's leaning Raw just because on Raw, Randy was more of the guy than he was on SmackDown. SmackDown, he was usually the associate to the guy or just kind of underneath.
Like he is now. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like on Raw, he was given the chance to be the actual guy.
All right, let's take a look at the stats. All right, I'm going to go over the Raw stats. We thought his best year was Psycho Randy Orton in 2009. Evolution was a high point. Punting Vince McMahon on January 2009. RK Bro as a tag team. Legacy as a leader. And versus Edge from April 2007. Richie, what are some of his SmackDown moments?
And for SmackDown, we put 2011 with a question mark because there was some debate because he's actually had some standout years on SmackDown compared to, but we picked 2011 because that's where the bulk of his World Championship runs have had as the World Champion. And for SmackDown, we had the feud with The Undertaker in 2005. We had the Wyatt family, where he was a member from 2016 to 2017, that whole feud that happened there. The feud with Christian in 2011, like we mentioned before. The feud with Jeff Hardy from 2018, the one with the earlobe. And then the R-KO tag team, that is short-lived tag team with Kevin Owens. That was actually pretty impactful, all things considered.
Excellent. And Richie, 2/3 of his matches, Insanity, were on Monday Night Raw. Even though this is from May, but still, he doesn't have that many SmackDown matches, maybe 2 or 3. But 450 Raw matches. Digging through all that stats to get that number, I lost years off my life, Richie. 221 SmackDown matches. That is 671. We're going to call it 675 now, a few months later here. TV matches on the WWE. Insanity, MJ. Insanity.
That is actually impressive. That is, damn, he's been doing this a long ass time.
MJ, all those stats, all those matches, where are you dissecting that right away? What do you think?
I'm actually very shocked. I knew he had a long Raw career, but I thought it was a little bit more even. And those Raw moments do really stick out way more than the SmackDown moments.
So the longevity and the moments on Raw, do you think they carry more weight than those kind of high point feuds on SmackDown with the Wyatt family and Bray Wyatt, Christian, Jeff Hardy, and really The Undertaker? All his feuds are very kind of rambunctious and very meaty on SmackDown. That's when SmackDown is 2 hours and it's a tape show and you have the segments backstage, in ring, match, hyper focused on a thin roster. All those times, thin roster on Randy Orton. That would kind of be I thought there would be more coming out of SmackDown because of the detail on it, right? So I like your point of like, wow, that's it.
Very much so. Yeah, those SmackDown feuds are all phenomenal. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, that ending feud with the Wyatt family was whatever, but
Started hot. And they was
Yeah.
him being in the Wyatts was pretty cool there too. But Richie, the tag team with Randy Orton, leading legacy, evolution, and then the big angle to kick off the psycho year of 2009 with Vince. Those angles and moments and feuds within those angles too on Raw just seemed to kind of carry more weight instinctively for me.
Yeah. With Randy Orton's Raw career, it's very much like, and this might be a odd comparison, but it's definitely like on Raw, he was like the center character of his movie. Like he was the Iron Man in that movie. But on SmackDown, he was like Iron Man in like Spider-Man Homecoming, Captain America Civil War. Like he's a featured player in it, but he wasn't central to the overall story. With Raw, he was more of the center focus of the story. And I feel like his opportunities to be the guy were just on Raw. Like you even had like in the pandemic era where he really caught fire with his feud with Edge and the feud with McIntyre. He made Raw his show, arguably. You know, he was the main character within all of that. Even with that terrible feud with the Fiend, you know, he was still center focus. And I really did like, you know, RK Bro that came after that, and even
Loved it.
his later career. And that's the big thing with Randy Orton. Every time he was on Raw, he was a part of something that was a highlight of the show, whether good or for bad. Like he was the central figure of the authority angle for a good long while. On SmackDown, yeah, we had Christian, you had Jeff Hardy. That was more like, I feel like Randy Orton's work rate kind of era, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Because we've had with Randy Orton like filler years, I like to call them. They're like there was a year where you saw Randy Orton just on autopilot. And that was usually around the year where it was Raw and SmackDown, you know, the rosters were combined, you know, it was the Super Showdown, Raw Super Show or whatever. And
yeah.
it really kind of diluted that point. And even if you like throw in like the Randy Orton Cody stuff that we have currently going on, you would still lean over to Raw because Raw was just Randy Orton made it his like show. And it was a combination of character, work rate. You had the RKO to Stephanie McMahon, you had all those different moments like Triple H invading his house, quote unquote. Just a lot of high profile stuff. And even though like a lot of stuff kind of like faded or didn't have the proper like send off, I think Randy Orton's moments on Raw were just a lot more fulfilling than on SmackDown overall.
It's like feuds versus moments. That's kind of the through line here. But when I look at SmackDown, those are kind of depleted years where Randy Orton's star power is really leaned on for a thin roster. Does that carry any weight with you, MJ?
A little bit of weight. But when I look at those feuds on SmackDown, I think of like Jeff Hardy being that guy in 2018 when he came back. And there was Christian's moment in 2011, with that world title. And the Wyatt family feud, that was they were trying to help get Bray over. In my opinion, he was never the guy in those feuds. He was just like,
He was a
he was
key
the guy to
part of
put
the
over.
roster, yeah, making guys, right? It's funny
Yeah.
because his first feud here, Undertaker kind of makes him, he's spiraling in
Yeah.
2005, right? He's kind of a lost guy. It's like we invested so much in him with that Intercontinental title run, evolution. We gave him the world title, and then he's kind of like spiraling on Raw, not doing much. Let's shift him to SmackDown. It's thin. Brock's gone. JBL's kind of cold coming off the title reign. Let's see what we can do with him on Thursday nights. And Undertaker doesn't have anything going on. So pretty much the whole year is Undertaker versus Randy Orton. And
That
it's
feud was
pretty good
amazing.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of missed potential with Randy Orton and SmackDown, at least during like early on, where you had the Undertaker feud, and it looked like it was going to be Randy Batista for WrestleMania 22. Unfortunately, Batista got hurt. Then
Yeah.
they had to transition to Randy Orton and potentially Kurt Angle, and then it was decided that Ray would win the Rumble, and then they added Randy in
Don't get
anyway.
me
So
started on that.
so again, it was one of those things. It's like they try to make Randy the guy on SmackDown, but it just wasn't the right fit yet because he was still young. He was still coming into his own. And it wasn't until he won the WWE Championship in 07 is when you really saw the ball rolling with Randy Orton as a singles performer. And that's where I think Raw is very important because you saw all different stages of evolution, no pun intended, with Randy Orton, where you had a good mix of him being a rookie, him finding himself as a character, and him being the veteran. While on SmackDown, you saw glimpses of that, but you didn't see that full transition into each and every one of those personas.
All right, before we vote, is this kind of a good conclusion to this little segment here? Randy Orton is similar to Triple H, but in a longevity form where he was never really the guy, but he was the guy that worked with the guy.
In a simple term, yes. In simple, like yes or no, yes. Did I think there were moments where he could potentially be the guy in comparison to Triple H? I think there was a lot more potential just because his window was a lot bigger than Triple H's run, like as the
And it
guy
wasn't
on
as
top.
polluted too, because Triple H had The Rock and Cena
Yeah.
and Austin and
Yeah.
Foley and Taker
Yeah.
to overcome, right? Yeah.
And
so.
meanwhile, Randy only had to really Cena and Punk to really contend with to be the guy. So it's like if there was something between 1A and 1B, that'd probably be Randy Orton.
All right, guys, we're at the end. I would like to make a case for SmackDown, but I just can't go there. I think it's Raw. I think that's my vote, is Randy Orton on Raw. In 2009 is his best year overall, and I really dug his early stuff, even though it's kind of not really shat on, but it's a little bit forgotten because he's been in the WWE for almost 25 years now, right? So I'm just going to lean Raw, even though two-thirds of his matches have been on Raw, but it just makes too much sense to me, Richie.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Raw. Like you said, I think like even though a lot of people don't go back and look at the Thunderdome era stuff, I really do think Randy was one of the strongest performers in the Thunderdome because that's where he actually found himself as a promo, which was amazing that it took him that long to become like a very captivating promo. But with him like finding his character being more verbally heavy, I think that's where he found himself as a very good promo instead of just, the menacing punt RKO guy. And I really think that's where his stage of evolution was. So I'd say Raw for Randy Orton.
MJ, is it a clean sweep, or you want to make a case for SmackDown?
No, I think it's Raw too. And I think when it comes to Raw, what we haven't talked about is that tag team with Edge, Rated RKO, and how they held that tag team division down in 05 and 06, especially during the Raw versus SmackDown feud when the brands would invade each other. They did a lot of like Skyview Hill shit that really made them that tag team.
Yeah, it seems like it's a clean sweep here, and that Edge stuff did lead to good stuff, and then it led to even some hit or miss better stuff in 2020 when Edge returned too. So it's double layered there. But overall, you've heard it here, guys. Randy Orton is a Raw guy.